I'm just going to go ahead and get started here real quick. Northeast Energy Advisors and Catalyst Connections, we got together several years ago, 2008, and started working with manufacturers in terms of helping them find money purchasing electricity and natural gas. The program's worked real well. We have, at this point, saved several dozen clients. I think we're up over 50 different manufacturing accounts now in a couple different utility territory areas. Duquesne Light, West Penn Power now, was Allegheny, Penelec, Penn Power, and we've topped $1 million in savings just on purchasing electricity and natural gas. So this is an extension of that program, trying to get you guys in a more flexible way, and hopefully this works out and you learn something from this. This slide here is just some of the clients that we have worked with through the Catalyst program and are saving money under electricity or a natural gas contract at this time. To kind of clarify how things break out and who this program is designed as and for, and where it's coming from your perspective, we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what this program is and what this program is not. We're 100% objective. We're not tied to any utility or any supplier or anything like that. We work for you, and we try to do what's best for you in terms of whatever contract is or pricing is, and try to give you a completely unbiased look at what's going on in the market. The second bullet there, a regional load aggregator, what that means is we have taken multiple Catalyst clients and negotiated on their behalf as a whole. And we've done this program a few times over the years where we'll get together some of the small and mid-level clients, put them together in a cooperative like a Sam's Club or a Costco, and go out and buy their power in bulk. And we're able to negotiate some very nice electricity rates for the smaller and mid-sized customers doing that. Again, 100% aligned with your budget, your cost objectives, and then what we mean by that is we're going to show you unpadded up numbers and just show you the numbers as they are, and then ultimately you guys get to make the decision. Lastly on that, who we are, we're a resource. So as we roll forward over the years, we're constantly trying to update everyone on where the prices are, where buying opportunities are, and how much savings may be additionally available to the clients that join the program. What we're not, again, as I already mentioned, we don't work for any supplier. We don't work for a utility. We're not a subsidiary. We're an extension of your efforts to save money in the electricity and energy. Talk a little bit about the market. This is a wholesale market chart. So this is raw wholesale power. You can see that this chart has moved dramatically in the last couple years. When you see that big spike up there on the left-hand side of the graph, that's 2008. That's when everybody was blowing and going, and right before the hedge funds crashed and the banks went south and all of that. And you can see the market came off pretty strong. And then at the beginning of 2010, we kind of were in a little bit of a rhythm until the end of last year. At the end of last year, this is what we call the perfect trifecta in the energy world. We hit 10, 11, 12-year lows, and you've seen some articles in the paper regarding this. We had a really warm winter. Marcellus Shale was pumping natural gas out of the ground like crazy, and the economy hadn't recovered. So those three things conspired to have a big supply and a low demand on the electricity side. So you can see right before the end of the year, the market really came off, and we've kind of been bouncing around at very low levels since then. Last week we saw the first real move up that we've seen this year. Yesterday it came back off, and we'll show this next graph I'm going to show you is actually a close-up version of that last couple inches there on this graph. And you can see, again, that's just a close-up. You can see how it moved up a little bit last week, but then again yesterday, like I mentioned, it came back off. So all these fluctuations in the market here on the last couple inches of this screen in terms of what that means to you guys' pricing, it's about 1/10 of a cent. So maybe 2/10 maximum. So it's not a huge shift in the market in terms of savings and what you could possibly see in terms of savings by leaving the utility or redoing or restructuring an existing contract. I want to talk a little bit about buying energy. Before I do that, I want to talk about kind of expectations on what savings look like. Most of the folks on the webinar today are from Duquesne Light. What we're talking about in Duquesne Light, if you're with the utility, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 20% savings off of the commodity. So based on how large you are, this is a significant piece of revenue. Obviously, that revenue just is savings and drops straight to the bottom line. If you're in West Penn Power, it's a little tighter than that. You're looking at more like 10 to 15%. And then Penelec, we think we have one person here from Penelec territory. It's running in the 10% range compared to the utility costs. So just to give you a gauge on where things are at this time. Options, how you buy energy. A lot of this depends on how big you are. And this is how we've approached the market. If you're a smaller client, and what I mean by smaller, something less than, say, 300,000 annual kWh, and you can see that on your bill, we can help if you have any individual questions or you'd like a personal consultation. We're certainly happy to do that with you. But if you're less than, say, 300,000 annual kWh, it makes a lot of sense to join an aggregation. And what that simply means is, as we mentioned before, is getting together with some of the other catalyst manufacturing clients and joining together and purchasing electricity in bulk. There's additional savings for smaller clients in that scenario. We've seen that routinely. There are some instances where if you're borderline on that category, you may want to do a discrete bid. Or if you're larger than that, you want to look at a discrete bid. Now, we have some scenarios where you may be a fairly large client, but it still makes sense to be in the aggregation. And let me talk a little bit about that. Depending on how a client uses their electricity, their price is based on that. So when you're a supplier in the electricity world, you're going to look at how an individual client uses their power. So for instance, if you're a generic office building in downtown Pittsburgh, you basically use your power from 8 to 5 every day, and you have no power usage at nights or on weekends. You're going to pay a lot more for your power than a manufacturer who's working 2 or 3 shifts and maybe a weekend shift. So in that scenario, you don't want to get lumped in with folks that are going to drag your price down. However, there may be some scenarios in the bulk purchasing program where you could take advantage and get a better price than doing it by yourself. If you're a large client, you pretty much have to do a discrete bid. And when I say large, I mean, larger than 1 million annual kWh, because you're so big you can actually move the needle, so to speak, on what the different suppliers in the market are looking at, and they need to schedule for your power. So the top 2 ways that we go about saving money is have clients of Catalyst either join an aggregation or do a discrete bid process and go out in the market and shop and see if they can get the best price. Lots of different suppliers, we'll talk about that here in a minute, with lots of different contracts, and it's customized in terms of what may be the best fit for you. There are some scenarios where if you use your power very poorly, scrapyards are notoriously bad in using their power. They're actually better off at the utility. So we do have some folks that we've done some numbers and analysis on and actually have suggested they stay at the utility. That's pretty rare, particularly in this market, but that does happen. The other scenario that you might be in at this point is at an existing supplier. If you're with an existing supplier and your contract has run out, most of the suppliers will serve you on a month-to-month basis, and they'll actually float your price. If you're in that scenario, it's certainly worth taking a look at and seeing if there's additional savings available to you. Also, along that same line, if you're an existing supplier right now, and that's a good thing usually, with the market down as far as it is, it definitely makes sense to look out and say, hey, can I put some more length on the back end of my contract or rebid it and look at the back end of this contract and see if it makes sense to lock in more time and some savings there. It is very rare, I want to point this out and make this clear, it is very rare that it pays off to break a contract with a supplier, with an electricity contract that you're already in. In most of the contracts, there's some very punitive language that you'll pay a lot more than you would save by breaking a contract. We would never suggest that you do that. I want to talk a little bit, and this is more of a company-to-company process, but there's different products available for folks to buy, and it all comes down to risk. On the far left-hand side of this slide, you have your long-term fixed price. That's the most conservative thing that a customer can do. Basically, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy power for 2, 3, 4 years. I'm going to lock this price in, and I'm going to forget about it. Market where it is now, that's not a bad idea. But that's the most conservative thing you can do. On the far right-hand side of the slide, you've got your long-term index price. That is basically you're floating the market, and your price is going to go up and down as the market goes up and down, and you're just along for the ride, as it were. You have not fixed your price. The market goes up, you go up. In this scenario where the market is in near historic 10-year lows, this is probably a very dangerous place to be in terms of the market. The probabilities of the market is going to go up. So even in our own practice, while we have nothing against index pricing, this is probably not the best time to be tackling that. So you got very conservative options, you got very risky options that are available to you, and a lot of it, frankly, depends on your company and your company's appetite for risk. If you guys have questions as we go through this, definitely send emails in on the chat, and we can take those as we go. Different suppliers available to us in Western Pennsylvania. We live in a very good area to be in a deregulated electricity market. We have some very high quality suppliers in our market. These are the best suppliers from our judgment in this market. There are others that we would not recommend, whether they have bad financial standing or they have some what we would consider less savory business practices. But the folks on this slide, we feel very comfortable that if you did a deal with them, they would honor the deal and you would be very safe in whatever product you chose. Issues to consider when you're looking at a specific contract. Some of these we've already talked about, and that's the size of your account and how that stacks up. Obviously you'll get significantly more attention from suppliers if you're a larger account or if you join an aggregation. And, that's just the way of the world. But it definitely makes sense to take time and understand how you're using your electricity. Do you use it as a manufacturer using 2 or 3 shifts? If so, there's some significant cost advantages there. Or are you using it just 9 to 5? That's not a horrible thing, but it definitely impacts the price that you're going to receive. Again, pricing options, whether you decide to fix your price up front for long term or you decide to do 1-year terms or just float the market, all those things clients need to take into consideration and think about how that impacts your budget this year, next year, and on down the road. Most of our manufacturing clients like to have stable input costs, and I would say that 99% of our manufacturing clients do go with a fixed price so that they can control those costs. Various term lengths, something to consider. Right now, a 12-month price is the cheapest. 24 is a little more expensive. You go to 36, you're getting even more expensive. What that's all about is the suppliers, the generators out there in the market, they're not willing to give away those out years. This market is so low, they'll take low prices for 12, maybe 24 months, but they're not really willing to discount that far out. They're basically counting on the economy bouncing back and getting some decent money. We'll see how that works out, but it's definitely a buyer's market right now. The next line, bandwidth and swing. For manufacturing clients, this is very, very important, and this one thing we spend a lot of time with our clients on. What this provision is, and it's in some of the contracts, but not all, it's a provision in the contract that says if you use more power or less power than the supplier or generator expects you to, you can face penalties. In the manufacturing world, this can be a significant issue based on how you're actually using your power, how your jobs are coming in, and how you're performing, and how you're driving your electricity usage. Most of our manufacturers want some significant relief in that scenario, and there are contracts out there that offer what they call 100% bandwidth. So you can use as much or as little as you want, and it'll still be at the same price. But that's a significant issue, and the penalties can be severe. So be very aware of that contract provision, or that potential contract provision in your deal. Credit issues. current and future. After 2008, credit from a generator or a supplier has ramped up in its importance. We can work around those in most cases, but certainly be aware that that can be a sticking point for any supplier. Those are the most important things. The last line, the individual pricing or discrete pricing, where you're going out and pricing individually versus an aggregated pricing. We look at our clients both ways. We'll take a look at the different prices you can get, and then at that point you get to make the decision on which makes the most sense for you. But those are options, and all options are always good. This is more about the discrete, but it definitely works for everyone. The way we roll out our program with Catalyst is we do an upfront, no obligation energy assessment. Basically, take a look at your electricity bill or your natural gas bill and tell you where you're at. How do your costs compare to what we're seeing out there in the market? And if we think we can save you money, we'll come back to the client with a very specific dollar amount of projected savings. And really what we're doing is we're doing the bids. We're going out to the supply community, finding out what the prices are for your account or an aggregation possibility and what the savings would be for you, and make it very tangible. We'll come back to the client with options so that they can see what their options are, what the potential savings are, and make their decisions from there. As a part of that, it's certainly important for us to understand how you guys are running your business. What's your appetite for risk? Can you stomach a floating price, or is that completely off the table, and what you're really after is ultimate price stability? All that clearly leads us to which suppliers would work best for you. I'm not sure how much this applies, but clearly some of the larger clients have in-house or legal teams that we may have to work with to make sure that the contract language is good and that it meets the commercial requirements that you're needed to, and go through all that and make sure that we have a good price and a good contract for your purchasing team. The next to last bullet is watching the market. As you can tell from the graphs, things have been bouncing around a lot, and we certainly try to pick points on the graph where it makes sense to purchase, and we try to catch the dips. And as you go forward with your contract, whether it's a one-year contract or two-year contract, historically there's always dips in the market where you can extend out your contract and either capture additional savings or at least hold your costs the same, and we're always looking for that for our Catalyst clients. And then obviously conduct a competitive bid process, get the generators and the suppliers competing against each other to get the best and final pricing that we can for our clients. Just quick to wrap up here, next steps. Really, it all starts with a bill. From an electricity bill, we can tell how much you use, what your prices are, probably where you've been, and what the potential savings that you might have right up front. As a part of the process, we have a letter of authorization, and that simply is it's a no commitment from you, but what it allows us to do is take your electricity account out into the market and get pricing from suppliers and generators, and then we can calculate in a more fine-tuned way what your costs will be. So it all starts with the electricity bill or the natural gas bill, and then it goes from there. At that point, after we get some pricing back and do some analysis, we like to sit down with our clients and talk about what the potential savings are, provide you with a spreadsheet, and then go from there. Obviously, everything in this process you guys have final call on, and it's your signature at the end of the day with the generator or supplier. That is it.